let's look at Jerry Brown and his proposal to cut back California water usage. Is this a good idea? Well, the problem with the California drought is that his conservation idea may be too late. And what I mean by that is, if California doesn't get a lot of rain this year, if they don't get bailed out in some way by weather, it may be a little too late on this water conservation. Plus, funny thing about water conservation is how are they going to actually implement it? You know, it's like, well, we're gonna charge people more money, or this is just going to hurt the poor. It's not going to hurt the rich at all, but it's going to hurt the poor, which is only going to hurt their economy worse, which is, like I said, they're in a catch-22 situation. And this is perfect because the Federal Reserve has low interest rates. Okay, I would just like to point out that if the Federal Reserve has low interest rates, if California doesn't start getting water, and the drought worsens, you could have a food crisis starting next year. If you have a food crisis and interest rates are low, you will have hyperinflation. I mean, that's all there is to it. Food prices will start skyrocketing upward. People will go into a panic. Like you actually had hyperinflation briefly in the U.S. with rice specifically, where there was a rice shortage and people then flooded to the store to buy rice. Right? If people suspect that there's not going to be water in the future or whatnot, you could actually have what I'm talking about, hyperinflation in terms of food, where all of a sudden food prices go through the roof, right? Then that starts hurting restaurants because people cut back on going to restaurants, which then causes, oh, this could get really ugly, like I said. So the problem is that Californians are kind of crossing their fingers right now and are just hoping they get some water this year so that next year the massive disaster doesn't strike. And then the Federal Reserve is setting the stage for this. If I was the Federal Reserve, I'd be raising interest rates like crazy because I would be popping that tech bubble. And part of that would force investors to then start allocating money into things that we're going to actually need, like water solutions. But the problem is we don't do that, right? So since the interest rates are low, investors can take all these gambles in things like Twitter. Twitter doesn't make money. Why is anybody investing in Twitter? You have companies that are actually solving water problems, and you have people dumping billions of dollars into Twitter. Why are they dumping billions of dollars into Twitter? Or GoDaddy yesterday that came out on, the stock exchange. Again, doesn't solve any problem. It's just a worthless company, but people are dumping billions of dollars into it. They're not dumping billions of dollars into where we actually need billions of dollars to go into. This is going to create a nightmare unless, the key here is if California finally starts to get some rain. Still in the long run, they're screwed. So what Jerry Brown is doing, essentially, is he's trying to save money when he's unemployed, right? He loses his job, he has no sources of income, and he's like, okay, I'll save money now. But how are you going to save, dude? Like, you don't have any money. Now, if you're a non-American, I realize that people who are Americans are going to totally get this. And like, yeah, we are talking about California. Right? If you're a non-American, if you're like, let's say, Russian or Chinese, Californians are incredibly stupid. If you don't believe me, just listen to any Katy Perry song. Like, I mean, you start to realize very fast why their state is backwards. Whereas if you listen to like Texas country, you can figure out why Texans are pretty smart. It's like, these guys are workers, right? But you listen to a Katy Perry song and you will find out why California should just fall off into the ocean. We would not miss any Californian if they all disappeared. According to NASA scientists, we may be looking at a 100-plus year drought. Now, I don't know how accurate these people are, but they call this a super drought, which is very creative naming, by the way, by these NASA scientists, right? So a super drought basically is a long extended drought that worsens significantly over time. What that means, though, is it's going to hit the Midwest. Now, I think Midwest America has probably the best place to grow as far as in the future. There's more potential in the Midwest than the coast. I think the coast are where the new Americans are going to be, or I should say the new poor Americans are going to be. However, the Midwest does need to do one thing for its future, and that's invest in water technology now. And here's why. If other states want to learn a lesson, here it is. The one and only solution is that you must have alternative sources of water. Right? Again, saving money when you're unemployed and you have no source of income, how good is that? Okay, now I'll cut back, except you don't have any sources of income. Okay, conservation is not a long-term winning strategy. I mean, I hate to say this. It's like frugal people. I'm frugal. I think frugal people are great, but there is a point in which you have to focus on earning more and not just saving money. There's that part of the equation. You have to focus on more sources of income, right? That's the same thing with water. So if you're a citizen, send this video to every member of your local government. Okay, your governor, your senators, House of Representatives, you name it. Because the time to act is now, before problems arise. It's one of the reasons why I write to Texas leaders time and time again, because the time to act is now. The Texas drought, we're getting more rain this year, which is good, but all that should really do for us, really, is to say, okay, let's keep investing more money in these water solutions so that even if we do have a super drought of 100 years, doesn't matter, we can turn on our desalination plants and blam. That's part of the solution. Or we've had enough water. We also have, let's say, extra water storage from the times that we do have a lot of rain. But I think Texas is going to be facing a 100-year drought. What's the solution? Desalination. You look at the whole city of Dubai, that's how it's built off of, is desalination. If it wasn't possible, that wouldn't even exist. So there you go. It's very possible, and we'll be able to sell it and export it to China. I mean, Texans take such pride in being able to export. We're leading the nation in exports now for, I think, our 15th year in a row, right? We are the #1 state in the U.S. Right? We are driving America, and that's what we're going to continue doing, and that's why the time to act is now. Don't waste time, okay? Now, California may luck out. They may get some rain, but the problem is there's long-run problems they're building, and the state will collapse in the next 25 years. If you're a long-term investor like mine, it's the reason why I will not hold on to American shares. I'm not exactly sure when, but when California collapses, that's going to create a nightmare for everyone in the U.S. People don't realize what that's going to do. I was talking to a Wall Street investor one time, and he was saying why he would never buy California real estate. And he's like, that state is just, there's not any value in that state at all. And he's like, the problem, though, which Americans don't wake up and realize, is because it's part of the U.S., when it goes down, and we've allowed them to produce too much of our food, when it goes down, it's going to negatively impact the rest of us. Now, the best thing that Texans can do, my hope, is that we can solve our drought problems, definitely, and we can prepare in the future, and then we can start producing some of the food and offset, California's stupidity. But the problem is that if other states don't pick up that slack, that may be good for Texans, but that's still not going to be good for, let's say, people in Nebraska. That's not going to be good for people in Iowa. And, of course, I don't want those people to suffer because of that. So states have to start acting now. And that's why this is imperative that you contact your local government and say, look, we should not be waiting on this anymore. Okay. So California still may not. There may still be a couple of years that they have before. I think when they say, oh, there's only 1 year left of water, that means there's like 2 or 3 years left of water. But if they don't start getting rain, they're in trouble, and their water is being drained. And so in the next 25 years, you will see the state of California collapse. The only exception to that rule is if they finally use their brain and they start getting some effective desalination. By the way, the solutions that they're using are very ineffective. They only produce about, I think it's 35 to 50% fresh water. Which is a waste of time, and they consume way too much energy. Okay, that's not a long-term solution. That's just a waste of money. So you taxpayers in California, again, y'all are morons. You're sitting there at the beach instead of paying attention to what your leaders are doing. The thing is that they're wasting your money. Okay, that's not a good solution at all. You need to look at real solutions from people and companies like STW Resources and whatever. What is it, Saltec and the Dutch company, and then there's whatever the companies are that are working with, what is it, Dubai, right? Look at the people who've had to use desalination and see where the best solutions are and try and test those for your state instead of letting your government, a bunch of bureaucrats who don't know anything, make the decision.